Alright, hello people, I'm the Dude, and this is my rant review for the movie The Pact with Caity Lotz. Caity Lotz. If you saw my The Machine review, you know I like Caity Lotz. She's not anywhere near as amazing here as she was there, but she's still good. And I think she still deserves more roles, to be honest. The only other cast member you're going to recognize is Casper Van Dien from Starship Troopers, and really nothing else. He's been in a million other movies, but none of them ever mattered. It was just Starship Troopers, pretty much. He is the one bad thing here, hilariously enough. Don't get me wrong, I like Casper Van Dien and all his cheesy roles. They're all crap, but I still like him as an actor, but he's terrible here. He's really, really bad. He doesn't ruin the movie by any stretch. He's not in much of the movie, but where he is here, he's bad. I was going to say the short version is it's a good movie, just watch it, but someone sent me a message, I think it was like 2 days ago, complaining that my reviews, when I do the short version, they're not long enough. The short version isn't long enough to be able to tell anything about the movie before I get into the spoilers, so I'll try to make the short version longer. I'll give it a shot. The movie is decidedly horror. There are actually two different villains in this movie, which isn't that big of a spoiler. You don't actually know what's going on for quite a bit of the movie. But it works. It builds suspense really good. That first scene where her sister gets nabbed works really well. When she's on the Skype call with her daughter or whatever. Really good scene. Caity Lotz is really good in her scared performances where she's genuinely freaked out. She doesn't know what the hell's going on. And, but, she pulls it together and she does her little, junior investigator sleuth thing and finally figures out what's going on. There is a big climax. Actually, there's two climaxes. Casper is a cop, Casper Van Dien. He kind of brushes Caity off in the beginning, and then he wants to help her, and then he gets caught up in it, and then... Is that a spoiler? Should I even say that? Well, we'll get to what happens to him later, I guess. But overall, he's the one bad part of this whole movie. They bring in the psychic to try and find out what's going on. It's pretty clear if you've seen the trailer that it's a ghost. It's not really that big of a spoiler. But they bring in her random psychic friend she knew from high school or something. She just happened to know this girl, and she's like, well, can you really do that psychic stuff? And she's like, yeah. She's like, okay, come on in and, deal with this ghost for me. That's basically what happens with the psychic lady. But, yeah, not a huge spoiler, but the ghost isn't the only problem. I think I alluded to that earlier, but it's not just the ghost. But, yeah, good movie. I liked it start to finish. It had really good, really good tension. It built up suspense really well. And the ending was really good. So watch the movie. There you go. There's a longer short version. The long version, with all the spoilers, Casper Van Dien dies. Considering his character was complete crap in this movie, I really couldn't be bothered, but I did not see his death coming. It was really unexpected. He's been in the house multiple times at this point, and this is probably on his fourth time in the house, and he's just wandering around looking, taking pictures, investigating, and then someone just shanks him in the neck with a knife out of nowhere, off screen. You can't even really see what happens, right? It's just like, and you see the blood go, and he just kind of falls down and then dies. So that was the spoiler I couldn't talk about earlier. The other big spoiler is that like I said, there are two villains, right? The whole movie, pretty much, you're getting snippets of information about Caity Lotz's family and how they may or may not be involved in these disappearances. But for the most part, it's just the ghost, right? The ghost is the antagonist for 75% of the movie. It turns out, huge spoilers, pause, that the real villain of the movie is her uncle. The real villain of the movie is this serial killer that she's had for an uncle that she didn't even know he existed the entire movie long. And the really creepy part is, she grew up in this house with her sister and her mother, and apparently this guy's been there her entire life. This crazy, whacked-out, nutjob serial killer has been living in the walls of their house since they were children, with these holes punched out in all the different walls, so he can watch them grow up as their kids, the bathroom, their bedroom, everything. He saw everything, and he's been there his entire life, living in the walls. That's why they never found this serial killer that was dropping bodies before Caity Lotz and her sister were born. They called him Judas, and they never knew who he was. He disappeared because he was living in their house their entire lives. She's 20-something now, so at least 20 years she's been living in the walls of their house. I don't know why. They don't explain why he goes from crisscrossing the country murdering people to just showing up at his sister's doorstep and living in her walls. There's like a disconnect there. There's no explanation why. Or why he didn't try to kill them. He's a psycho serial killer, but he just goes passive for 20 years and turns into like a voyeur, I guess, and just watches everything they do. I honestly don't know. Another big question is, did his sister know? Did their mother know that he was there? Right? There's a couple of little moments where they make it seem like she was hiding him, like she knew that he was there in the walls. If she did, she is one disgustingly evil person to raise her kids with that guy living in the walls, watching them all day long, having no idea when he's going to snap and murder everyone. She's crazy. There's something wrong with her. I don't care if it's your brother. If she didn't know he was there, she's still a terrible person because she kept abusing, Caity Lotz and her sister, and she like locked them in the closet for prolonged periods of time. And it's particularly terrifying because the closet itself is the doorway into his secret room, right? He could get them at any time when they're locked in that closet for hours on end. That's how he gets from, his room out into the house. There's like this little trap door in the closet that she kept locking them in. So he could just reach in and grab them at any moment. But, yeah, I don't know if the mother knew or not. Either way, she was still evil. But, yeah, Caity Lotz, she's dealing with okay, let's go back to the beginning. Sorry, I skipped ahead to the spoilers. The beginning of the movie is Caity Lotz coming to look for her sister. Her sister had done a Skype call with her daughter who, I don't know, she lives with her friend or something? I don't know how that works. They don't really explain it, but Caity Lotz's sister has a daughter and she doesn't live with her mother. I don't know why. But Mommy Dearest is on Skype talking to the little girl and, they're doing the thing and she's like, I can't see you, Mommy. And then she's like, can you see me now? And she's like, yeah, but who's that guy behind you? Or something like that. Who's that standing behind you? And she freaks out and turns around and doesn't see anything, but she sees the closet door open and it's pitch black inside. If you've seen the rest of the movie, it was their uncle. He was behind her when she was on the Skype call. That's who her daughter saw. But, yeah, very shortly after, she goes to investigate the closet. Really bad idea. We find out later in the movie that he beheads her. His niece. He cuts her head off and keeps it. Keeps the head as a keepsake in the like, a crawl space under his little room, right? Under the closet. He keeps the head. He gets a decent body count in this movie, right? He goes dormant for 20 years and then murders everyone that even steps foot in the house, basically. But Caity Lotz shows up and she's trying to figure out what happened to her sister. And she's not really alarmed at the beginning because she just thinks she ran away. Apparently her sister's a flake, right? So she thinks she just left. She got stressed out by something and just left. Turns out, no, that's not the case. But like I said, the whole first half of this, 75% of this movie, you never see the killer. You never see her uncle. You don't even really hear about him till like the last half of the movie. It's all the ghost, right? The ghost grabs Caity Lotz and like throws her around the room and she thinks that the ghost took her friend, the friend that takes care of her sister's daughter. They show up at the house looking for the sister and they stay overnight and the friend just disappears, right? It turns out that the ghost was freaking out and throwing Caity Lotz around because she wanted her to leave. She wanted her to get the kid and get the hell out of the house because her uncle was there and he was going to murder her. It turns out that he's the one that grabbed the sister's friend or whatever. Maybe they were in a relationship. I don't know. They don't explain it at all. I honestly don't know what the friend's connection is to the sister, but whatever. The sister gets grabbed first. You don't see what happens. Turns out he takes her head off. And then the friend gets grabbed and you never see her again. Presumably she's dead. But the ghost basically saves Caity Lotz. She doesn't know that because the only way she can communicate with her at this point is to like grab her and throw her around the room and like scare her, right? But she grabs the daughter and escapes. They're the only two left in the family alive at this point that we know of, other than the uncle. And the daughter goes into, I guess, I don't know, she's like taken by the cops. And, they've got her for the rest of the movie, I think. You don't really see her much. But Caity Lotz, comes back to the house and brings the cop, Casper Van Dien. He doesn't believe her. And they're checking the house and nothing really seems out of the ordinary until they find this room, right? They find the room in the wall that her uncle's been living in her entire life. And it turns out that her uncle doesn't actually sleep in the room. The room is attached to the closet, and then there's a crawl space under the closet, which is also hidden, and that's where he sleeps. So presumably when they found the room, he was asleep. But obviously this freaks her out to find out that this guy, someone has been living in the walls her entire life. At this point, she doesn't know that they're still there, I guess, because they don't put forth much of an effort to find the person. They just find the room and go, oh, okay, that's kind of creepy, and then they just, ignore it. That's pretty much it. But yeah, Casper doesn't believe her. He leaves, and at this point, she's still getting freaked out by the ghost, who's still trying to warn her. So she goes and finds her psychic friend from high school, which is extremely convenient as far as the plot goes. But brings in her psychic friend, and through the whole psychic event thing, when she's talking to the ghost and all this, I guess her uncle is still asleep because he doesn't try to kill anyone. He just kind of stays wherever he is. And, he never leaves the house. So he's there somewhere, but he doesn't really do anything. She tries to communicate with the ghost, and the ghost basically freaks her out, and, she has to run away and, flee in terror or whatever. But it turns out that the ghost wasn't really the problem. And the psychic kind of tells her that. She tells her that she's not trying to hurt you. She's trying to warn you or something like that. And the only way to get rid of her is to figure out what she's trying to tell you. But apparently the ghost didn't tell the psychic about the uncle, because the psychic never mentions the, psychotic serial killing uncle living in, the crawl space or whatever. You'd think if she'd have said something about that, she'd have mentioned it. Hell, you'd think that would be the one thing that the psychic would get, from the whole encounter with the ghost. Psycho guy living in, the basement, run away. Or, call the SWAT team or something, but no. All she gets out of it is that the ghost wants to tell her something. So she goes back to the house. Caity Lotz has got big balls in this movie. She goes back to the house by herself, and I think it's like at night, right? And the house is almost completely dark. Goes back to the house by herself. She goes into that room, and she does like a Ouija board thing where she's trying to talk to the ghost. And it turns out that at this point, this is when she drops the bomb that her uncle is the serial killer, right? And right after she's like, the ghost spells out Judas. She's like, "Is my uncle Judas?" And the ghost does yes, right? Spells out Judas and then says yes. And right after that, her uncle starts crawling out of the floor, almost right in front of her, right? Because the room she's in is connected to the closet, and he's crawling up through the closet. And this is when the shit seriously hits the fan, right? She's literally in mortal danger at this point. And it turns from kind of like a suspenseful ghost movie to a slasher serial killer movie. Is she going to survive the encounter with the psycho? And she holds her own pretty well. She ends up getting caught, but she grabs this hanger and shanks him with the hanger. And that gives her enough time to, loosen her binds and free herself and get to the gun. And it turns out that the last scene of the movie is her shooting her uncle in the head with Casper Van Dien's gun, right? Before she knew where Casper Van Dien's body was, because she found the crawl space, and, her sister and the friend and Casper and everyone he's murdered at this point recently, they're all in the crawl space. All their bodies are just littering the place. But she sees his gun, goes for the gun, fails to shoot him the first time, and he ties her up. And then she uses a makeshift shank with a hanger from the closet and stabs him with it, and that gives her enough time to get to the gun. The truly cool part of the ending is that she's with the kid, her sister's daughter, and they're all having fun times, and they're going to remodel the house. Why you wouldn't get another house? I don't know. If you've ever had a reason to buy a new house, that was it, right? This guy's been living in your walls, and there's secret rooms, and there's dead bodies, and really bad memories, and her mother tortured her by locking her in the closet for hours on end in the darkness, and all this stuff. You'd think she'd just get another house, but no. She decides to remodel this one, and it turns out that her serial killer uncle is now a ghost, and he's still living in the walls. Really good ending, right? He's back from the grave, basically, and he's still gonna haunt them. Really, I like the movie. I really like the ending. I really like Caity Lotz. I like the multiple twists. They weren't incredibly hard to see coming, but they were effective. And the first half of the movie, building up the suspense when you didn't know about the uncle, was really good. The scene where the uncle crawls out of the crawl space in front of her, and she has no idea he's even in the house at this point. That was a great scene, really tense. Where he captures her, and you don't know what's gonna happen, and she uses the coat hanger on him. Really good scene. Pretty much all the acting was good, but Caity Lotz was the standout. And like I said, the ending. I loved the ending, where he's not actually gone. It is a horror movie, and they love to do that gotcha ending where you think, you're safe, and you're not. You think the good guys won, and they didn't. In this case, yeah, she killed the serial killer, but he's still there. His spirit's still there to cause trouble. And if you saw what the ghost earlier could do, the friendly ghost, imagine what the, evil psychopath serial killer ghost can do. Because the good ghost could, like, fling her around the room and, like, throw her into walls and move things with, the power of ghostliness and all this stuff. So, God knows what, her evil uncle can do. But, yeah, just good movie overall. I liked it from start to finish. Highly recommend it. 2 thumbs up. Rant review, The Pact. I don't know why it's called The Pact. No one mentions a pact throughout the entire movie, right? No one has really a pact throughout the entire movie. I don't know why it's called The Pact. I have no idea. If someone can figure that one out, please let us know in the comments. But, maybe the mom and the brother had a pact, but it's never really directly referenced during the movie. Like I said, she may or may not have known about him being the serial killer. I don't know. It's hard to say. The ghost was like their friend that went to their church with them when they were younger, and I think she was his first victim or something like that. The ghost that's haunting the house that's trying to warn Caity Lotz was her mother and her brother, or her mother's brother, her uncle's friend when they were younger. That was the first victim. So maybe the mom knew about it. I honestly don't know, but they never directly mention what the pact is, why there's a pact, who has a pact. I don't know. Seems like a really weird title, but I guess no, it doesn't really matter. Still a good movie. But yeah, feel free to comment if you actually watched the movie, what you think. Watch the movie. It's good. If you like horror movies, it's good. Watch the movie. Feel free to let me know what you think about it. I'll see you guys next time. Alright, hello people, I'm the Dude, and this is my rant review for the movie The Pact with Caity Lotz. Caity Lotz. If you saw my The Machine review, you know I like Caity Lotz. She's not anywhere near as amazing here as she was there, but she's still good. And I think she still deserves more roles, to be honest. The only other cast member you're going to recognize is Casper Van Dien from Starship Troopers, and really nothing else. He's been in this going on for quite a bit of the movie. But it works. It builds suspense really good. That first scene where her sister gets nabbed works really well. When she's on the Skype call with her daughter or whatever. Really good scene. Caity Lotz is really good in her scared performances where she's genuinely freaked out. She doesn't know what the hell's going on. And, but, she pulls it together and she does her little, junior investigator sleuth thing and finally figures out what's going on. There is a big climax. Actually, there's 2 climaxes. Casper is a cop, Casper Van Dien. He kind of brushes Caity off in the beginning, and then he wants to help her, and then he gets caught up in it, and then... Is that a spoiler? Should I even say that? Well, we'll get to what happens to him later, I guess. But overall, he's the one bad part of this whole movie. They bring in the psychic to try and find out what's going on. It's pretty clear if you've seen the trailer that it's a ghost. It's not really that big of a spoiler. Someone sent me a message, I think it was like 2 days ago, complaining that my reviews, when I do the short version, they're not long enough. The short version isn't long enough to be able to tell anything about the movie before I get into the spoilers. So I'll try to make the short version longer. I'll give it a shot. The movie is decidedly horror. There are actually 2 different villains in this movie, which isn't that big of a spoiler. You don't actually know what's a million other movies, but none of them ever mattered. It was just Starship Troopers, pretty much. He is the one bad thing here, hilariously enough. Don't get me wrong, I like Casper Van Dien and all his cheesy roles. They're all crap, but I still like him as an actor, but he's terrible here. He's really, really bad. He doesn't ruin the movie by any stretch. He's not in much of the movie, but where he is here, he's bad. I was going to say the short version is it's a good movie, just watch it, but